Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Decline Invite, the only invite worth accepting. I'm your host, the extroverted IT leader, Ryan Drumheller, and I'm really excited for today's episode. So we have our first international guest, the amazing Natasha Federici. Welcome, Natasha.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me here today. It's really exciting to be here, particularly as your first international guest as well.
That I've strategically tried to make it so it was you, and it'll become evident as we go along. A lot of great stories, and for the guests and listeners, see, I already screwed it up. And for the listeners
No worries.
that don't know, I used to work with Natasha before. She was an L&D manager at my time at Iris. And a lot of fun surprises and changed my thinking of what an LLD program could be like because it was nothing like I thought it would be going into it. But we'll get to that later. So Natasha, let's talk about a little bit of your background, a little about your credentials, and who are you, and what do you bring to the table?
Yeah, so I currently work still at Iris Software Group. I am currently on maternity leave, which is really lovely, which is why this is even more special in some ways to be able to kind of dip my toe back in and talk about some of the things I'm so passionate about. So yeah, I'm a recent mum to a little 4-year-old boy, 4-month-old little boy called Leonardo, who's absolute apple of my eye. So those of you that were maybe watching this that saw me when I was pregnant, he's obviously now here, which is really lovely. So what are my credentials? What do I do? So I work as our global senior learning and development manager. So essentially what that means is I look after all of our programs that we run at Iris. They're currently being looked after by somebody else. When I am at work, I'm looking after our leadership programs, our personal growth programs, our apprenticeship programs. Essentially, learning and development is about making sure that everybody can perform the best they possibly can, and reach their goals, not only personal goals, but also make sure the company is making, reaching their goals, whether that's profit or it could be something else as well. And in terms of my credentials, so I've got a degree in music and drama. The piano probably gives it away in the background. Not that I've played very much recently, admittedly. So I did a performing arts background. Like most people, don't really know what you want to do at 18, do you? So I did that, and I think it gave me loads of really cool skills that I don't think a lot of other degrees necessarily give you, like working with people, performing, which I do think learning and development a lot is about performing, about keeping people engaged. And from there, I did some different roles to kind of help to find my way, that I really liked developing people. Also, my experience of being a really awful manager, which I admit a lot of the time, helped me get to the place I'm at now, where I'm really passionate about developing fantastic leaders. So I did my CIPD, which is like a professional development course on how to develop people and like strategy around learning and development. And then since, I've done lots of other things as well. I know you're really big on your development and certification, so things like psychometric, I'm big on that. I've done things like Hogan and Insights, which looks at different personality types and how we interact with each other. I'm also a mental health first aider. I do training for the mental health first aiders, and also a qualified teacher, and various other bits and bobs that help me hopefully be the best I possibly can at my job, but there's still always room to improve.
Always room. Yeah, I feel like it never ends, I
Yeah.
guess, but it's always kind of the roller coaster, I think. Like I was just describing this the other day because I had taken a break between one really big certification and now working on another big certification. And like as soon as I started again, the emotions and like the feelings came back of what the roller coaster was going to be like, because it's always like at the front end of it, it's like so much work,
Yeah.
but when you start getting towards the back end, it's like, oh, all right, I'm almost to, like, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm almost there. And then, like, when it's test day, you
Yeah.
go through a roller coaster of emotions. Of, will I pass? I hope I pass. And then, at least for me, lucky enough, I've had a really good string of good luck of I have passed
Yeah.
on the first one. So when you get that, it's like everything alleviates, and then it's celebration time. So
Yeah.
I know it's a little different, at least from like an L&D perspective, but um, we'll get to a few of those things I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier because I'm very curious on what it took to get there. but let's get into a couple little icebreakers.
Okay.
Fun part, I hope. Let's ask an interesting or maybe even fun topic. And maybe you can tell us some or most of it, but what was your worst training session ever?
So the worst training session I've ever had to deliver was anti-sexual harassment training.
Mm,
And that was to middle-aged men, and I was about 24 at the time. That's probably got to be one of the worst things ever. It's like a board game. It was a brilliant concept. It was just really uncomfortable to deliver. But on the recipient end, it's got to be often when you do accreditations, considering you're learning something that's L&D related, it's like death by PowerPoint. And I remember turning up to one, I won't name what it was, 80 pages of slides that were printed for you, and they just talked at you the whole time. Anybody that knows me in training knows that's just not what I like or what I do. So those have got to be up there with yeah, the worst stuff that I've ever had to be involved with and have to deliver myself as well. Not a fan of compliance training.
yeah, that one sounds like super uncomfortable. We're here
Yeah.
for a reason and don't necessarily want to be here for this one.
Yeah, yeah, really, really
Oh,
uncomfortable, yeah, particularly for the crowd and yeah. But I mean, I think when you are in learning and development, for those people that maybe want to or have been or whoever's watching this, you have to do those uncomfortable things, right? You never really know who you're gonna have on a training session, right? So you have to just be really open, you have to roll with it, and you have to not worry too much because if you do, you would never do the job because it's so unpredictable.
I think that's something that maybe a lot of individuals wouldn't have realized that it's that
Mm,
unpredictable because we're used to going to, book this session, we're going to this topic. It seems like the opposite, really. So I think
yeah.
that's a interesting learning point right there.
Yeah, yeah, it can be. And lots of it's brilliant, don't get me wrong, but there's lots of parts of it that are unpredictable and you have to roll with it. Technical difficulties, people behaving oddly in your training session. You just got to roll with it, not worry too much.
So here is a good one, and people always kind of show their feelings towards this word, but a buzzword that you would ban. Like you hear this buzzword, you're like, I'm not about this buzzword. What?
This is probably a bit controversial. I don't know if it counts as a buzzword, but I hate the word e-learning. Absolutely hate it. I
Mm,
hate what it is. I think it has such a bad rep, right? If I said to you, right, Ryan, today you're going to do some e-learning, does that make you excited?
no.
No. I thought you were gonna say yes then. I think it's got a really bad rep for compliance training, and now, a lot of companies, Iris included, are moving towards this digitalized learning, which is brilliant, by the way, but people, they associate, call it e-learning, and to me, that just gives me images of click, 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 like it's death by click rather than death by PowerPoint. So I think we
Right.
should just ban the word e-learning. We can call it something else. We can call it digital learning. We can call it interactive learning. We can call it self-led learning, anything else. But for me, I just hate the word e-learning because I just think it unfortunately has really bad connotations and automatically people go, oh, and that's not what you want people to be thinking about when they're about to do a piece of learning.
It reminds me. I mean, the death by click is a good example because it reminds me of like the know before trainings that you're forced to do, and nobody
Yeah.
wants to do it. You're just waiting
Yeah.
for the timer to go down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like compliance training on the whole. There's like a whole market out there for how to make it more interesting. But ultimately, when people say you've got to do compliance training, it doesn't matter how brilliant the platform is or the training is, because you've called it that and they know it's an e-learning, people automatically are like, I'll just sit there with that on the background and I'll wait for it to tick by. I do not believe that anybody takes compliance learning seriously because of the way, unfortunately, it's been packaged up for a long time. It needs a complete refresh, rebrand, and people would take it more seriously. But yeah, it's not my bag anymore. And I'm glad because it's not something that is easy to kind of sell over to people, to be honest.
See, so we got the exact answer I was hoping to get. um, So here's a fun one. An invite that you would always decline. Something comes up, I'm not about it, right? Like what
Uh,
does that trigger for you?
Well, I've got a personal and professional, and a personal one, is anything if anyone invites me for dinner that involves spicy food, just not my vibe. Me and my husband once accidentally ate buffalo wings in the US once, didn't realize buffalo was hot. Just thought it was like a type of wing, how naive we were, and we literally had cups of Coke with, like, ice cubes in, dangling our lips in because we were on fire so much. That's not for me. And in terms of work, I personally hate going to something I don't know what the point of it is, which is probably the whole point of everything that you're doing. But a meeting where I'm like, why have I been invited? It's not got an agenda, it's not got clear points, and I've just been added on. It's just like, in case Natasha's available, just pop round. No, thank you. I would rather, make the most out of my time. And also I think as a resource, everybody that works in a workplace has a unique set of skills that adds value. And if you just have lots of like dead skills in your meeting because they're not useful there, then actually I think that almost like dumbs people down in terms of wanting to contribute because it's so dull and boring, and they just think, oh, I won't bother coming, I won't say anything next time because that's not valuable to me. And it just wastes so much time. So yeah, things that I don't need to be involved in, really.
I mean, that makes sense. I don't know about how many meetings I've been in where it's like trying to figure out what the meeting is, and then
Yeah.
does this like is this my responsibility? Is it
I
not?
know, I know. And maybe it's like I'm quite a direct person, and my team, if anyone's watching this, will tell you that I'm very direct. But I feel like I like to know what I'm doing. I'm very strong red energy when it comes to insights. That's my colour and preference. So I like to know what I'm doing and what I need to get out of it. So I'll be the person going, okay, what do you want me to do then? Which I know sometimes people are like, all right, steady on. But if I'm leading a meeting, I'm very much like, right, let's get to it. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Who's doing what? Is everyone happy with that? Anyone got any questions? Because to me, we're so stretched resource. I always have been every job I've been in. Which is like it's a blessing and a curse. But I do think we have to maximise the time that we have available to us, and so it's just frustrating, just annoying.
I, I'm
Sorry, all
thinking in
those
the back
people
of
that
my
tried to take
head.
lunch.
No, no. I'm thinking in the back of my head that the next time that you make your way over to the US, that we'll have to take you to a Buffalo Wild Wings, which is super. Everyone in the US is like, oh, geez, yeah, because they have all kinds of sauces, and we
Do
just
they?
just watch you. This is to have you
I
pick
just
out
smell
the
it.
random names.
Oh
Yes.
god, I feel terrible. I find black pepper spicy, so I
Oh
have no
no.
chance. Yeah. Yeah, no chance.
I've been working on this for like the last decade. Like that used to be me, and I've been trying to like I don't want to eat something that tastes like my mouth is burning. Yes, that's not enjoyable, but I've been
Yeah.
trying to get like some level of like you can have some spice and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance.
uh yeah, let's move over to a little bit about your career journey and some of the lessons you've learned away. And some of these are just notes that I've taken. I think they're going to mean a lot more to you. One of the first notes I have is, from arts and training roots, corporate L&D, how you
Um,
actually built an L&D from scratch at one of your last places that you worked at. I believe it's called Azeret's Capital. Maybe that sounds close to what it should be
yeah.
called.
Yeah.
But I have a note from there about how you built something, probably looks like from the ground up.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I talked at the beginning about doing a performing arts degree, and a lot of people thought that was a bit of a waste of time. I went to a red brick university, a very good university, University of Birmingham. Spent a lot of money, unfortunately, hit the 9 grand a year fees for us in the UK, which was like very big increase on what the fees were previously. Um, but it gave me loads of skills, right? I worked in lots of group settings. I developed lots of people skills. I was able to just turn up with a group of people I'd never met before and just work with them. And I think as a result, I'm very good at working with people. I'm very sociable, I'm quite outgoing. People often tell me I'm quite confident, assertive, blunt, in a nice way. And I always have good intentions. So I did that university, did the classic thing, didn't know what I wanted to do, left university, joined a company called Explore Learning. There's a lot of people at Iris
Hmm.
who have had connections to a company called Explore Learning. They're brilliant, and they do an amazing graduate scheme, essentially, where you sort of run your own children's tuition centre. I loved working with children. Didn't know what I was going to do with my degree, so I kind of did that. And essentially, it was like a shop, right? So you had a shop, you had all these children on the membership, huge responsibility, looking after their academic achievements, but a big part of it was sales, retention, and training up your staff. So we were responsible. So in my centre, you start as what they used to call an assistant director, and then I was promoted quite quickly onto a centre director. So I had 400 children to look after. Kids used to come after school, and I had about 15 to 20 part-time staff. So most of them were like students, 16 to 20-year-olds, often at grammar school, who were tutoring the children. Now, that is kind of what I would say is the most pivotal place for me, because their training was fantastic. So already I saw what really good development looked like. Loads of fantastic training that they offered, like classroom training, that then I was able to take part in, but also then deliver myself. But also, I learned about how rubbish I was at being manager. I talk really openly about this at Iris. I think there's nothing to, I actually am quite proud of the fact that I can talk very openly about this. I think a lot of people would be ashamed. But I was 21, right? And I didn't know what it meant to be a good manager. But we were smashing it from a target perspective. We were hitting all our targets. So I was like, hey, I'm brilliant. Look at me. I'm a great manager. And actually, it was only when I asked my team for some feedback, which I would always encourage people to do, which I think is very brave. I had some difficult responses that were like, well, you're quite driving and you don't really say thank you very often, and you have really high expectations. And I was like, what? I mean, it was really hard to hear. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's hard when you're really passionate about something and you think you're all doing a great job and you think you're all on the same team, right? That you're working together, for people to be like, we don't like you. And we don't like the way you do things. So I had kind of two choices there, right? I could either walk away and be like, you guys are my team and you do what I say, which a lot of people would do that. Or I could go
Absolutely.
swallow my pride and go, okay, I have to change how I do it. And that to me was the pivotal moment where I realized that the way I want to do things, it's not the way everyone else wants to do things, which sounds so obvious, doesn't it? So that kind of changed it for me. And then I decided, right, I really want to do development. I really want to develop my team. And that kind of led me to lots of different roles. And to one of the ones you referred to there was a company called Assets Capital. So a few years ago now, they're a financial services company, FCA regulated, so very heavily regulated company, had no learning and development function, just didn't really exist. And the demographic of the company, I would say, was like the average age was maybe like people in their 40s, really small company. People are quite happy and settled there, right? And they don't necessarily all want to rock the boat and be top of the tree. There wasn't necessarily career pathways or anything like that. And it was very much compliance heavy when I started, like make sure that we don't get sued by the FCA kind of thing. Like we need to make sure we're by the board. But it grew more than that, right? But it was tough because people were like, I don't want to do training. Look at her. She's like 27. I'm 45. What does she know about being a leader? Who is she? I've been working longer than she's been alive. It's a really tough crowd. And I've had that in a lot of my jobs before where I've turned up, been like, come on. And everyone's like, get lost. So I had a real journey on my hands. And it's the same for a lot of jobs I've had where you have to really turn people around. You have to convince them that it's exciting, it's fun, it's good for you. Even if you're about to retire in 5 years, you can still develop. Like, you don't have to be promoted, right? So I did a lot of work on being the ambassador for what I believe in. And I believe that's the biggest thing you can do in learning and development to convert people, I guess, is to just be living and breathing what you want people to be. And eventually, it sticks. And you wouldn't believe that when I left 18 months later, people really enjoyed what I did and they wanted to continue doing it. And we did a leadership program. It was quite brief at the time because I was leaving, but, we did a leadership program and I had people on that were in their 50s going, yeah, it was actually quite good there. I actually learned something. And that to me is what keeps me going. I love a challenge anyway. And I've got enough experience now that it doesn't really put me off. But it's really tough to go and build something from scratch, but actually it's my favorite thing to do, because then you get a lot of people go, "Yeah, that's a load of rubbish." And then a year later they're like, "I love this." And you know that you've made a real impact in what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that you just said where I'm just like, yep, I have a lot of experiences of the same kind of path in a different way. Like, obviously, I'm not in L&D. I very much appreciate education. Uh, Easy hook, line, and sinker for me to like, yep, cast him
Oh,
easily. But the whole being 20s and trying to get individuals who are twice or triple your age to like want to believe in you and also like take you serious. Like, oh yeah, I am now transitioning into that phase of my career where I realize I'm no longer in the 20s
I know, me too.
and very much no longer in almost the other age gap here. So and now it's like, oh, people are looking at you that way. It's a very different way of thinking because I've been like what you have said. I've been preparing myself to have to convince people, and now I don't have to do that as much. It's
Yeah.
so weird for me, but just because of the
Yeah.
age.
It's mad, isn't it, though?
But
And it's a real barrier. It's both ways, right? Ageism, both from being
yeah,
younger and being at the end of the workforce. It's definitely a real issue. You know, you hear of people that have like 30 years experience that they won't be hired because, you know, people think they're stuck in their ways or whatever it might be.
right.
It's it's bad. It's really bad because actually there's great strength in every different person in the workforce at different stages, depending on what you need from them.
Absolutely. And I think the next question I have for you is what was it like to transition to for one leadership platform where you're building it for that company, but now you're coming
Mhm.
over, in this case, to Iris, that is very
Mm,
global.
yeah.
From my perspective, being in the U.S., obviously that's one big country, but there were several countries, at least in my time, that I just all of a sudden like it's Australia and India and just all these different countries. What was that like for you to build not just a training program, but have to make it global?
Yeah. Tricky, right? Because a lot in L&D, a lot of what we do is it's the same problems in every business, but the package to fix the problem is very different. So in every business, leadership development is needed, right? But the leadership development I did at Assets Capital, where we all worked in the same office and everybody could come
Mhm.
out of work for the day. And it was really easy to like, from a logistics perspective, and people had been in the company for a similar amount of time, that at the time I thought was really hard. That was so easy. To come to Iris where you're presented with so many challenges, like people don't come in an office, we often work remotely. People are on different time zones. People have different lengths of service. Oh, we've acquired this company this month and they've done this before, but they haven't done this, is really difficult. And I think the hardest thing when I was designing the leadership programs that we now run at Iris was how can I make it accessible for everybody? And I'll be honest, Ryan, I wasn't a big fan of virtual training pre-Iris. I could do it, I've done it lots. I didn't really think it worked. I thought, get me in a classroom, get everyone off their phones, get everyone off their laptops. I can make this work. And it scared me a little bit of how I was going to actually get people to be like engaged with me for like long enough on a virtual call. And we know how distracting everything is on a laptop, right? And how busy people are, particularly at Iris. Um, but actually, I think the magic formula was thinking and identifying, you know, what do people need and what do they have available to them from a time perspective, of which if I'd asked anyone, they would have said, I've got no time. So you have to package it up differently. So we did full day sessions at Assets. You know, you'd had one day out a month and everyone came out. We did a whole day. In fact, sometimes we did 2 days back to back. That would never have flown at Iris. It's difficult enough, wasn't it, getting us all together in February? So we had to do bite-sized stuff. So I realized a lot of the same concepts in different ways that Iris was wanting to work on, but in a way that was a lot easier to digest. So 90-minute sessions is what we decided on. One topic, 90 minutes. And also to try and break it up by not having, so we did a lot of what I refer to as like knowledge sharing and then skill application in my previous leadership programs, like all day. So in the morning we talk about a knowledge thing, like I don't know, like Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, and then we do skill application. Whereas I realized if we took out the knowledge and told you to have a look at that as part of digital learning before, then in the session we could just focus on skill application. Like, you know, how we did discussions, we talked about examples. So then you're talking, right? You're not just listening to me talk. And I did a lot of talking in those sessions, I know, but that was a way to make it accessible, to make it exciting. And you know, you'll know because you started the program, so it wasn't many people. Now we have so many people who have been through the programs. We have queues of people queuing up. My amazing Kirsty and my team still smashing it, doing amazing sessions. I know Laura is as well. And you know, what we've built from nothing, when people were a bit like, I had a lot of people be like, I've done a leadership program 5 years ago, Natasha, don't need to do another one. And then all of a sudden you'd see them creeping on the waiting list because other people were talking about it. Like our customers, like people like you when you were a colleague of mine, are our biggest marketing tool. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head because when I started at Iris, it was I think the week that this got announced. It was like my first I forget what it was, whether it's a monthly or quarterly session, and you know that's when I seen Alona and everybody else, and then this was in that announcement, and I was like, oh, awesome! Like I will sign up for this from just a political spectrum. You know, easy win. Like I'll sign
Yeah.
up for it. I was exactly what you just described. I had done numerous leadership trainings. I had just come off from doing like Harvard online. I had done every leadership like thing that you could do on the US side, it seemed like. So I'm like, well, you know, it's easy. Like I could speak about anything. And then I got there and I'm like, oh, this is ran a little differently. Like, oh, okay, like that's fine. And yeah, there was a lot of talking. I don't want to call it talking at us. It wasn't really talking at us. It was like talking about the information. But then even like with the breakout sessions, those were different. Like we had to work as a team on a topic or solve something. And it became one after another. And the way that you guys did it, I think, is why it spread, right? Like you had to make the best of a situation from a global perspective, but it worked. And then when we got to that on site in February, and I'll share a photo from that. There's a very lovely photo from this whole experience. I think everybody thought it was amazing, and I hoped I get to do it again somewhere,
I'm
because
sure you
I don't
will.
think the value was seen from that. We made connections. We made probably lifelong connections, at least from a LinkedIn perspective, and
Yeah.
encouraging and rooting for each other kind of thing now. But the 2 days that we spent there, even more hands-on workshop, being able to see faces, actually now being able to see that we're not just a blob on a screen
Yeah.
anymore. Like we're right there. And ask like the crazy questions, like what's the crazy American saying versus, you know, like what is happening in the UK versus we learned a lot about different cultures on top of it. So like
Yeah.
it was just a truly just a great experience. And at the end of that, like, yeah, we had those lovely certifications from CMI, that I didn't have any idea what it was going into it. That was like, I do have more to learn. I have to come into things with a way more open mindset to be like, I don't, just because I've done 20 or more leadership trainings doesn't mean that I've learned everything about leadership. Very clearly haven't. So
Well,
I
it's
think you
like
did an amazing job.
oh, thank you very much. I mean, I'm very lucky to love what I do, so I'm very happy to do this kind of conversation while I'm technically not working and on maternity leave for my little pudding. But I think the biggest thing as well is that commitment, right? When you're running a face-to-face program, if you don't turn up, I can come and drag you from your desk and be like, "Come on, Ryan, you need to be here right now." When I'm running a global leadership program and you don't turn up, I can't find you. I can't hunt you down and be like, "Why are you not here?" You have to make people want to be there. You want to make people committed. And I saw it in the office when I used to run sessions. People would be like, no, I'm doing this training session. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't happen all the time, and I know it often slips on people's agenda. They think I don't need training, and I've got some thoughts around that hopefully we'll come to on how essential what we do is for real, true performance, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be in a job. But I think that one of the things that we were really successful at and continue to be successful at Iris is creating that commitment where you sign up for something and you can do the program at your own pace in your own way, but you're going to finish it. And I think it's like everything, isn't it? The more popular something is, the more you want to be involved in it. And I think once more people realize that we weren't just going to talk at them and we weren't just going to, tell them what to do or tell them they weren't good. I think probably people were shocked when I turned up and I was like, I was a terrible manager. Don't be like me. This is all the things I did wrong, guys. And it's okay if you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, I do those things too. That was me. It's okay. Like, acknowledge it, reflect on it, change it, make a difference. That, I think, maybe that authenticity and vulnerability as well of being like, I'm not perfect. It's still now I'm not a perfect leader. I'm not a perfect manager, or I hopefully refer to myself more as a leader than a manager. But yeah, I think that hopefully as well has helped that commitment side of things. And also for it to continue to be successful, and it will continue to evolve, it will continue to grow, and yeah, do all sorts of new things over the next few years, I'm sure.
And exactly, and you've hit on it a couple of times of just how authentic and vulnerable, in conversations. And I think that's one of the first things about not knowing, like, your name and a face to me at that point, right? I don't know
Yeah.
necessarily anything. I just see this name, and then I'm like, oh, because I truly believe in that. I 100%, like, I can recall a leadership survey at a different company I worked at, and my team rated it exceptionally well. There's nothing to change. And I sat them down and we sat there forever until I was like, no, I don't accept that, because there's something that annoys you. There's something I can do better. There's something that you wish. You can't just say that I'm
Mhm.
amazing and perfect. I won't take it. And then, things would come out eventually. And I'm like, cool, now I got feedback. I can work with that and I can improve, because if I'm going to hold you to a standard, I'm going to hold myself to a standard. And that's my mindset as well. So when I heard all
Yeah.
of that, I'm like, this is different already.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, awesome on you, but like, it's
Well, I haven't
different.
always been awesome, Ryan, as you know. Um,
Yeah, no.
But I think it's important as well that people acknowledge that it's a bit like my favorite analogy for why leadership development is essential is, let's say, Ryan, you wanted to apply to be an accountant. You would be expected to have an accountancy qualification. You will have been expected
Hmm.
to understand accountancy and to know what you're doing. And yet, every single day, people get promoted into roles and they have no idea how to be a manager, let alone a leader, which are two very different things, by the way. Um, as you will know,
Very much.
people don't know what they're doing, and I didn't. I thought I just tell people what to do, right? I just tell people to do. We work really hard. You're all going to work as hard as I am because I sell my soul to the job because I'm a loser like that. That's just who I am. And when you don't, I think you're a bit rubbish. Like, no, 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 no. This is where it goes so wrong, and people leave. We have high attrition, and people don't say. I mean, obviously, you had a great relationship with your team, so they did give you that honest feedback. But 9 times out of 10, if you say to your team, "Is there anything I could do better?" No. Why are they going to say no? Because they're going to be worried about the consequences of telling you the truth. It's like people tell me all the time, my team are really happy. Maybe to your face, but not behind your back. And I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but I think it's a very dangerous space as well. Like, as a leader, you can't be a friend, and you have to make sure that you have that respect and that level. But equally, you're not better than anybody. And I used to always say to my team, I'm never going to ask you to do anything I wouldn't expect of myself. I'm not saying I should be doing those things, but a prime example I explore is we used to have children's toilets, not very nice places. Sometimes there was difficult situations going on in them. I would not expect one of my members of staff to put their hands down the toilet if I wouldn't do it myself and show people I wasn't, it wasn't beneath me. And that in itself also generates respect. And then one final thing, while I'm on my little high horse about this, is when you do that and you create that environment for your team, when you're having a bad time and your team needs to pull together, they work so hard for you. My team works so hard for me. I mean, they probably don't always say lovely things behind my back, but they work so hard for me because I like to think, and I hope they feel this, and they're welcome to comment if they disagree out me on this if they're watching it. Is that when they need that time or they need that support, they can have really honest conversations. And not everyone is 100 out of 100 every day, are we? Let's be honest. And some we've got kids, we've got problems, we've not slept, we're not feeling well. So, you're 90%, and then the next day where I'm not 100%, I need help, they're 120 for me. They're not going to do that if I'm always on their backs all the time or not treating them like humans. But I'm going to zip it now because I can get really
Fair.
edgy about this.
No, very much agreed, and this is why I think we got along because I call it Ryanisms. I say the same things over and over again. There's like 20 sayings, and one of them you said verbatim. I wouldn't ask someone to do something I wouldn't do myself. Is exactly the quote that my team, even the people that are working for us now, again for the second
Yeah.
time with me at least, they're like, no, I've seen this guy in a full suit rolling around on the ground, getting all dirty, hooking up cables with the rest of us. And his title says X, and he's doing it right along with us to get the job done. And
Exactly.
it's like, it doesn't matter to me. A title's a title, and I'm doing a
Yeah.
job. But at the same time, I'm trying to get it done, and I'm going to do the same thing that they're going to do. And it makes them respect you later on when they're like, you know what? He was right down here yesterday and rolling up the dress shirt and the
Yeah.
sleeves and throwing throwing the desk together kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree with a lot of the things that you said. So
That's good.
so what kind of practical advice would you give for scaling leadership initiatives?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a few things I've already touched on. I think, first of all, you need to really know what people need and want. So for Iris, we'd never really had we'd had some brilliant programs run by an external company, but not something that everyone had done. So not some core topics. So like, what do people actually need? And then
Sure.
how are we going to make it accessible for people? And then I think you need to be realistic that for the first 6 to 12 months, probably no one's going to do it, or at least not. Because one of the things I feel quite strongly about, sorry for my squeaky chair, is mandated versus non-mandated programs. Old me used to really think mandated leadership programs should happen because like everyone should be a good leader. But what I quickly learned was that you just get people there that just sit there because they're told to sit there and have no intention of changing their behavior whatsoever, and actually are a bit poisonous in the training room. So what's
Yeah.
better is to scale something up, is to do what we did at Iris, to say, look, we're offering all these amazing programs. I really thought it was important to offer you guys something for taking part, because I know how frustrating it is when you do a leadership program or any program and then on your CV, it doesn't mean anything. That's not to say we advocate people leaving. Actually, if we treat people well enough, they shouldn't want to leave, alongside various other things. Obviously, I know it's not that simple, but ultimately, I wanted them to have something to show for it that meant something outside of Iris, which is why we partnered with the CMI, which is a brilliant partnership. I think has been very popular. So I think that's important for really scaling and also internationally recognized as well, because what you guys are recognised in different countries is have different worth, don't they? So there's that side of things as well. And then I think you need to, the marketing strategy is so important. So I went on the company update at Iris lots of times where she's talking in front of lots of people. We shared feedback all the time. I got people told people who told people who told people. And then we were celebrating people's success. The graduation we ran last year was probably one of the biggest things that drove our success, because we were really putting a spotlight on those people that really had made the effort and were doing such amazing work. And I mean, I'm going to call him out specifically by name. I hope he doesn't mind. But Damien, who came on our program, he was on the program with you. He won Manager of the Quarter a year after. Now, I'm not at all saying that
Right.
the program was the reason he won that award. Damien, in his own right, deserves to win that without any of the kudos for the training programs we ran. All I'm going to say is that he did do them, and that hopefully that helped him on some of those journeys. But I know he's done training programs before. But ultimately, in learning and development, we have to prove results. And those are the kind of results we need to look at. Are people being promoted? Are people not leaving? Are people's teams not leaving? We do PCON, don't we, which is like a engagement measure. So really, you need to constantly be looking at the data to inform, okay, right, so we haven't got that many people taking part. Why are they not taking part? maybe the times aren't good. That's one of the first things we realized, having you guys in the US, the time for you and us is different. So how can we make sure you take part? So there's probably lots of scattered ideas there, but I think you really have to I was anticipating this is like a 2-year program to really hit it, because also you're not going to see the impact of those behaviors trickling down for quite a long time. I think we really started to see the impact from a metric perspective about 12 months on. So you need to have lots of little like kickstart things over the first year to keep boosting, to keep more people coming on, to keep it fresh, to keep it exciting before you kind of renew, to make sure that it's growing. You can't just launch one day and be like, everyone come, because communications in businesses is just so much. You'll just forget it. So you constantly have to be like filling your cup up all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the best like and joyful experiences were seeing so many different people from across the country in those meetings on top of it, and then seeing them from all different countries, and
Mm.
then we're having conversations about the topics, but then a lot of times we'd get the work done, and there's a few times obviously we sat there awkward, but then there's a lot of times we would talk about just anything like, oh, you're from the US, like, oh, can I ask you X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z? Sure. And like vice versa. And we'd start getting that kind of collaboration. How do you measure that? I guess is a great question, because a lot of leaders would look for, a number on a page or some kind of measurable result. And that's almost unmeasurable in a way, because it's like a bonding experience and a learning
Mm.
experience and a gelling of people. And I think it's a hard thing to be able to talk about and to get the decision makers up top to either invest more or continue to invest in, or it's
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
envy you in that regard. Yeah.
it's really true. We're probably the hardest department in a business to prove return on investment, right? Like, people often see L&D as a nice to have. I think I mentioned that before. Like, oh, it's nice to have training, but if we need to get rid of people, then we'll get rid of training, because like we can survive without them. And proving the impact of what we do, like in a measurable way, is near nigh impossible a lot of the time. It can be done, but it is near nigh impossible. And I think what you have to do is you have to start all the way at the beginning, and you have to look at, for example, let's say, Ryan, you have a team and you came to us and said, oh, my team are not performing. Then before we even go, well, let's stick that plaster on there and not really think about what your team need, we need to be thinking about what's the measure of where they are now, and what's the measure of them performing? Like, what does that actually look like, so we know that this is working? And then go backwards to design the intervention that's going to help you get there. And the problem is with learning and development is it takes a long time. Like I said, like 12 months, you might start seeing an impact from a leadership program that somebody went on a year before. And I think it's very hard to be able to measure that. And like you said, the bonding experience, one of the biggest piece of feedback we consistently still get is, I now can do my job better because I know who to talk to at Iris. I know who
Yeah.
to connect with to do what I need to do. And actually, that's been one of the most powerful things for me, that networking opportunity. It is really, really hard to measure. We're trying to do it on things like core behaviors. I can't think what the word is because I've got serious mum brain, but like competency type things, like leadership competencies, that's it. Core things that people should be demonstrating. But again, that's quite subjective. So we try and look at data. You can do like self-assessment data. My personal favorite, although it's quite expensive, is to do something like Hogan, where,
Mm.
let's say you're a leader and your team does a 360 for you, purely data driven. And then a year later, they do exactly the same thing again. And we sit down together and we debrief it, and I coach you through it, and we talk about learnings and developments. And that really shows progress. But a business has to be massively invested in that. And unfortunately, sometimes people think that we can perform miracles. Like, this person's a terrible manager and shouts at their team, so can they come on your workshop, Natasha? And then they'll stop shouting today. And I'm like, I can't promise anything, because they've got to want to change, right? I can't shove
Right.
it down people's throat and force them. They've got to want to do these things. So it is really hard. But if you have a good strategy and a good plan to begin with, it is possible. It's not easy. I could always do it better, I think.
Yeah. No, the want to is such a key. I've had an array of leaders across my entire career, and it's so obvious the ones that are just doing versus the ones that want. And it's two different methodologies, two different lines of thinking. And the ones that want will get better. It's just as they get opportunities or information or different ways to think about stuff. I'm an example of that, really. Like I continually try to keep an open mind and adapt and go, oh, you know what? Didn't realize that. That's a good point. The program you ran is a great example. I came into it with a perception and left with it a very different thought in the end. So, I mean, you got to have people that are willing to be open to that. And if you're being told to go, yeah, that's a hard, because it's a negative perception already out of the gate. So you're already starting from
Yeah.
ground negative zero, not even zero.
Yeah, but
That's
then
hard.
you can I don't wanna give away my tricks of the trade here, but, you know, I think I'm quite good at disarming people because I have a lot of people that are like this when they turn up. Oh,
Yeah.
what does she know? Like, "Oh, I've gotta sit here and I've gotta pretend blah, blah." And I can see it. I'm not stupid, guys. Like, I can tell when you turn up to my sessions, I know how engaged you are, and I'm just putting on a show. You know, I'm here to do my job, you're here to do yours. I can tell, and actually, I can see when I start talking about me and how I'm not perfect and how I make mistakes, how I lose my temper, all these things that are totally human. I can see people disarming where they're like, "Yeah, I do that too," or "Oh yeah," and then people start saying, I'm actually not very good at that. Like, I'm actually not very good at managing my time. And you're like, mm-hmm, yeah, I know. But I'm glad you've realized that. And, you know, I think that's quite powerful because actually I don't need to tell people, it's not my job to tell you what you're not good at. That's not my job and it's not my place. And who am I to judge? It's your job to come along and be open minded enough to be like, actually, maybe she's right. Or it's not what I think. I'm teaching theory, right? I'm not just preaching what Natasha Federici thinks. Um, you know, thinking, okay, actually, yeah, maybe I do that. And maybe that is how my team feel. And maybe that isn't the right approach. And that internal dialogue, people then come away and do with that what they will. And I've seen it happen a lot, not just at Iris, in many companies. And I've not said anything to them. And they have come along very disengaged to begin with. We can't win them all over, but they're my favorite ones where you're like, I know you don't like me. And by the end, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. And you're like, ching.
It's the biggest challenge, right? And every one that you convert is you brought them from the cliff back, right? And
Yeah.
and now hopefully they're running the other direction fully.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the I think one of the best experiences for me, like I had worked with a lot of global companies in different countries. I had never worked for like the UK side when I joined Iris. So again, I had visited there like a year or two previously, I think. So I had a little bit of flavor of maybe kind of what to expect. But once I got there, it started showing me just how drastically different even laws or views and stuff was from the UK to the US. One of them being like the mental health and well being stuff, because
Mhm.
in the US, that's going out the window. Yeah, it's very much no longer about the person, diversity, all of that is just
Mhm.
headed out, right? On our side, at least. So being over here and experiencing and hearing it is such a pull for me as an American, but sitting in and seeing that there was a lot of care. You and Naomi talking about
Yeah.
that in one of our sessions and just how passionate that she cared and the company supported very different. So,
Mhm.
when you're talking about well-being, did you notice like maybe like the gravitational pull from like different parts of the world, even like in the regards to that topic?
Definitely very different in different places. And I think it goes hand in hand, right, with people like being treated well, working hard, that kind of thing. I mean, in the UK, I think there's a lot of laws that force companies. I'm not saying Iris is not included in that, by the way. I think Iris is a brilliant employer, very, very supportive, brilliant when it comes to mental health. Naomi Cosgrove is phenomenal. Hope you're here watching this, Naomi. She's absolutely phenomenal and she's done amazing work at Iris, as is Ellie Little. Like they're an absolute powerhouse. Um, but there are a lot of companies that just do it because they have to do it, right? And have mental health first aiders. But one thing that's really interesting is when I'm running sessions, you know, we had a big population in India and the US and a few people in Romania who were mainly joining a lot of the sessions I ran and the UK, obviously. The culture is very different, right? And in India, people very much don't talk about these things. It's very private, and you wouldn't share. So I think Naomi's having to approach, how we support people out there very differently. So the idea of a mental health first aider is probably very, like, absolutely not. And I suppose in the US as well, we have to put things in place that are suitable for the US market, whilst also, being accommodating of what are actual requirements. But I think it's very apparent that the US and UK colleagues are very similar in terms of how they want to approach it, and maybe a little bit more open about things. Whereas I found colleagues in Romania and India were much more private, and therefore found that when they were trying to support their teams and be like, look, I know that you're having a bad time, people would be like, I'm fine. Because that is culturally what is expected of you, and you would never say I'm not fine, because then your job might be at risk, for example. This is just what people have told me, by the way. This isn't my own personal experience. um so it's a really hard balance when you're delivering global leadership programs to be like, this is what we do, because actually, this is what we should do, but maybe it's not accepted in your country to do that. So being able to say, this is the ethos of how we should support people with their mental health and well-being, but these are the ways you need to tailor your approach that suits the individual. You might be somebody like me who's like, do you want to talk about it? I'm very open book. I probably would. If someone in my team doesn't want to, then I need to stop prying, because that's not the right approach. Is there another way I can support them? So that's one of the trickiest things about having like multi cultures in the same training session for the same company, because although we're one big company, we're also in lots of ways little companies, because of the way cultures are very different in different organizations. And I suppose we're lucky really that there's not that many different cultures. It could have been even more complicated, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, going back to that February session, which honestly, I know we're saying February, and that seems like forever ago
It does,
now,
doesn't it?
but I remember sitting there, now that you bring up like Romania and a couple of the other countries, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm replaying questions in my head. I remember getting asked certain questions that I'm like, really? Like, that's interesting that you're even having to think about how to ask it from that perspective, because to me it's so simple, but I I'm not from that culture. I didn't know, certain things. So like again, going back to that value proposition of how much value that we came out of that. So now if I worked with an individual from that side, I now know, oh, okay, Romania think similar to this way because you got taught this. And hopefully it's accurate because it's maybe just one person telling me, but
Yeah.
at least now I'm going to come in with trying to like think of that style. And then yeah, I remember so many conversations from just the India perspective. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of
Mm,
sense now. That I think one of the most valuable things I learned was, give them some time sometimes, because while they can speak and think and talk in English, that's not necessarily the first language in a lot of cases. So they're translating in their minds, and that's why there's a
incredible, isn't
delay. They're
it?
not saying stuff. That was one of the most valuable things that I didn't necessarily know coming in. So and you didn't even plan that, right? That just happened with the individuals that we had in the room on top of what we got
Mm.
from the experience. So yes, I'm going to keep championing that, even though I'm not, though not there any longer, because I haven't had an experience like that in any of my previous stops. You're right. Like the L&D program was, here's your Udemy subscription or your Coursera. Good luck with you. Like,
Yeah. I
okay.
think I think as well, that's why there was a few talks about, let's have an India cohort, let's have an American cohort. And I was quite against that. I was like, no, we need to like mix everyone up in a mixing bowl, because actually, like you've said, a lot of
Yeah.
probably your key learnings and the memories that you're talking about come from working with different people and actually having different perspectives. And sometimes we had sessions where were tricky, because people were like, yeah, but I wouldn't deal with it like that. But actually, leadership development is not about telling people they have to do things a certain way. It's about saying, look, these are the tools that are available to you. This is how we should lead. I talk a lot about Daniel Pink and drive, autonomy, mastery, purpose. Those three things in any culture can still be done in different ways, right? But ultimately, they are going to drive engagement. And engagement actually is what everything we should be doing is about. If we want to keep our amazing staff, is engagement. And that obviously learning and development is one part of that. But yeah, I think it's great to have lots of different people and lots of different ideas. And people taught me stuff. People challenged me, asked me questions I hadn't thought of. I learned so much from every session I deliver. And every session I deliver after that, I get better at what I do because I've learned something from the people that have come on my course. So I very much see learning and development as a two-way street, whereas unfortunately, I have attended trainings where I feel like the person that's leading it is like, don't ask me questions because I know everything. I'm telling you what to do. Don't and that automatically switches people off as well, I think. I think we all have space to grow and learn. Absolutely. Otherwise, I definitely wouldn't be good at advocating what I do.
Yeah, nope. I would totally agree. I'm never done. I'm never 100% buckets full. I'm done. Like I'm gonna be like this until I'm no longer here on this planet, most likely. And for better or worse, I'll be trying to learn something. So it's nice to be around individuals who presented in that way, because I've definitely been in the room you're describing of like just the feeling is like I'm giving this because I'm being paid to do it. I don't believe, or I don't harness
Yeah.
the message in that, and it's so different, especially when it was just you at one point, and then you went out and assembled a team, and then like-minded individuals, and I remember being in trainings with Kirsty the first time, and I was like, I love this lady already. She is so not sure if she's doing a good job. And then like that right there tells me that not only are you doing a good job, you're going to get better because you're already looking for feedback in a way. And so many people would be like, you're doing an amazing job, you're doing great. And
Because
I'm
it's like
sure she's way better now.
she's
And she was
amazing.
good then.
That's something I just want to touch on briefly, and not that anyone probably really cares, because right, we all have difficulties in our job. But what we do is so
Yeah.
vulnerable, like so vulnerable. Like I have to literally be on camera in front of like 15, I mean, much more than that a lot of the time in other jobs, but at Iris, 16 people all looking at me, going, come on then, what are you going to tell me? I have to think about what I'm going to say. I can trip up on things. I have to be so
Yeah.
prepared. I can't just read from my slide deck if I want to practice what I preach. The amount of prep and time that goes into it, the skill level, the like being able to think on the spot, your tech goes down, somebody asks you something you're not prepared for, someone starts being difficult. It is really unpredictable, like I mentioned before, but it's really quite vulnerable as well. And there's only one time where I've had a really unpleasant experience face to face. And somebody actually said, one of the participants said, well, would you like to get there instead of her and do it? Oh, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I think people forget that it's quite exposing. So it's very natural to be like, oh, is that any good? Do people like it? Because you don't know unless people give you that feedback. But just touching on to the mental health thing, just before we move on again, is one of the things I think I've learned as a leader that, I know some people don't really like mental health. I think it's a bit of a tag thing that people use and abuse. I personally think it's a bit of a lie because everyone has physical health, everyone has mental health, just some people have mental illness, and that obviously, just like they have physical illness, makes things harder for them. But I think one of the biggest lessons I learned through my terrible leadership experience was that people are going to deal with things differently to me, and that's okay. And I know that seems so obvious, but people that have worked with me before know that I am all in. I work really, really hard. I work too hard. I sell my soul to the job. It's going to be interesting if I still feel that way when I go back to work next year. But it's really, really important to me. But as a result of that, I expect everyone else to do the same. So when you can't really be asked today, Ryan, I find that annoying. And I'm just using that example, by the way. I know you're not like that. But I'm like, why are you not working as hard as me? This is what I was like when I was Explore. Like, why are you not working as hard as I am? Like, why would you not? Like, we're at work really hard. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons is that people work hard in different ways and people are going to have bad time. And because when I'm having a bad time, I hide it and put it in a little box and put it away and suffer in the evening. That's not necessarily bad, but if you are struggling in the day and that's affecting your job, then that is not a bad thing, right? I just need to support you around there. So I think we have to be really careful as leaders that we don't put our own expectations we have on ourselves on other people, because people are different. And I have always managed to get the best out of my team without having them to be carbon copies of me, because I'm also not perfect and I have many faults and flaws and probably I'm a nightmare to work with in lots of ways. But I have also some great qualities that make me really successful. But I can't expect other people to be like me because that's just not going to make a great team. And also it's going to wind people up and upset them. And that's really important for people's mental health, is not having expectations for people that you've set. They need to set them for themselves, and you need to tell them how to reach whatever their objectives are in their role.
100% agree with that. And it's kind of funny that I've had several interviews. I'll call it in the last 4 months, and a few questions have come up in some of those interviews of essentially like, how would you handle the situation, or how would you manage this team? And a lot of stuff that I pulled from was kind of experiences like this, or some of the things I even learned during this, or just some of the things I had previously done, which is one of the things I like to think is nobody comes to work wanting to do a bad job.
No.
And you've described it to a certain degree that we're all humans at the end of the day, and we don't know what's happening unless like we're having that kind of vulnerable conversation, and we're not going to have that with everybody we interact with. And it's one of the things that I've had to do better with, especially outside of my team. Like with my team, I try to make a culture where we can talk about enough. They can say what they want from as far as I want to, but I never need to. At the same
Mhm.
time, I'm like, yep, Bob doesn't have it today. Something's going on. Give him some space, give him some time, because over the course of a year, Bob's going to perform and he's going to do everything. Just right now is a period of time that's down
Ex-
for him.
exactly.
But outside of my team is where I needed to adapt and grow. Right, I'd show up to this meeting. I'm like, why is this so difficult? Like, what do we like? We're talking about this topic, and I'm thinking along the topic now instead of thinking about the individuals who were or making up this call or this meeting to get to this topic outcome, and I'm
Mhm.
not translating it over there. So I've had to expand my growth in that
Difficult.
regard.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I suppose as well, one thing you have to be careful of, and I need to watch this myself, is because people know that I am a turn up, show up. I was very, very poorly when I was pregnant. Like, I don't think anybody realized how sick I was, and I still ran every single workshop. And I could have easily been written off sick, which is no shame in, by the way. And I could easily have had many sick days. But personally, for me, rightly or wrongly, I just couldn't do that. And so I have to be really careful that my team now don't think that they're expected to do that as well. Do you know, like if they're sick, I would expect them to
Right.
just muddle on through because that's what Natasha would do. Actually, I think you have to be really careful from a role modeling perspective of when you of like being honest to be like, look, I really don't feel great today, so I'm gonna plow on because I can manage to do that. But if you're not feeling great, I don't want you to feel like you have to do that. If you want to, that's fine, but I don't want you to feel like you have to do that, because then if you're not careful, if you're like a proper workaholic, like I definitely was, then you'll find that your team will then think that they have to do that. And while some people might think, well, that's great, then if they are going to get burnt out, they're going to have pressure on themselves. I think, like you said, sometimes people just need a little bit of time to step back. And I think it's really normal as well to be frustrated as a leader, right? So like something happens and you're like, that's really annoying. You're not annoyed at the person, you're annoyed at the situation. It's frustrating. You're now short staffed. You've got to do something last minute. That's okay. Don't take it out on that person, and make sure that you have steps in place to mitigate some of these circumstances, or to try and do the best that you can and accept that the best that you can do is got to be good enough as long as you're working really hard, because things are going to happen that you can't control. And there's no point being frustrated that they're off sick for 6 weeks. Like, that is not their fault. Like, don't get cross with them.
Yeah, I think you just hit a very valuable topic, which is sometimes we take for granted like how we are as people, and I'm going to carry myself this way, but then I'm not necessarily thinking about what others are seeing, and like I'm selling it as marketing myself, really in a way, and now other people are like, he's this title and I'm under that. Do I need to do? And that's a very good
Yeah,
point of making sure it's like, no, this is just me.
it's like Teams and emails on holiday. I make a big point of that in my sessions,
Yeah.
of saying, don't do it. And I'm guilty of it. I'm a hypocrite. Like, I have done it. I stopped doing it towards the end of my pregnancy, but I have, for all my jobs, I've done it. And unfortunately, it does send a dangerous message to a team of that. Can you make sure you do this too? And like, we all work really hard. I'd like to think, like you said, that most people work really hard and they spend so much time away from their loved ones to earn money, to do a job that they enjoy, hopefully, and they work really hard for a business that ultimately benefits other people at the end of the day. From a real financial perspective, you might get paid, but you're not really taking in big bucks. Like, why would we make their life harder than it needs to be by being difficult and kind of thinking badly of people and stuff? Like, let's just give people the benefit of the doubt and allow them that space if they need it, to rejuvenate themselves or whatever it is, and they'll work much harder for you in the long run. But you do need to be careful that you do not, work all your holidays as well, because we've earned those days off. And you will not, I know because I've done it, that I come back to work and I'm annoyed because it feels like I'm not any time off. Who have I got to blame? Me, and only me.
Yeah, I've created such spaces where, like, especially in IT, we're doing like overnight releases or weekend maintenances, stuff like that. I've carried that over into their work week too. I'm like, no, you just did all of this for the company. You're not showing up Monday, and they'd be super
Mhm.
confused. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you you already basically prepaid the company is the way that I see that. You don't work Monday, or maybe you want Friday or whatever, but like,
Mm,
go away, go enjoy your time, spend time with your family. I'm cognizant of that because I don't want you to get burnt out. Like, you have to get guard against burnout factor too, on top of like, you did your job. Like, at the end of the
mhm,
day, you did something valuable for that. And it's very strange because not all companies would feel that way. Like, I very much didn't necessarily communicate with HR what's happening. They're on salary, they're going to get paid the same. They already put in hours. If it comes up, I've got provable data to show it. But yeah,
mhm.
no, we don't need to say anything. Go away. I'll handle it. Have a nice day off. I
Yeah.
will. Don't anybody message Bob. He's gone.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Boundaries are important.
And I think before we go to the next topic, now's a great time to go ahead and have a message from our sponsor. So before we dive into the future of learning, let's hear a quick message from our sponsor.
The true challenge in mergers and acquisitions isn't just the deals, it's unifying the technology behind it. At Tricentra, we bring deep expertise in technical due diligence, system alignment, and secure integration. For international companies entering the US, we're the reliable partner you can trust to protect your investment and accelerate growth. Tricentra makes your merger more than complete, it makes it successful. Visit tricentra.com and book a consultation today.
All right, and let's get back into it. Let's talk about the future of L&D. So the first topic that I have, and I think it's a hot topic just in general, all across every industry right now, AI,
Mm,
and what that means in L&D. So from your perspective, and I know, like you said, you kind of mentioned, you went off a little bit recently, but I'm sure you've had conversations or read articles or even some experience because obviously AI was super hot when I was at Iris as well. But how
yeah.
has that impacted and influenced, L&D?
I think it has got real opportunity for us to streamline processes. So I think AI in a broad sense in learning and development, I think is going to make our roles even more important, because actually it's going to make a lot of the knowledge stuff, a lot of the data that we can kind of collect as humans and learn really easy to access. It's going to be able to streamline things. It's going to be able to, I mean, we have, I suppose, a little bit of AI on our LMS platform Cornerstone. You put in what your skills are, it recommends things for you based on what you click and things like that. All of that, I think, is only going to get better and better, more adaptive, more personalized learning, which I think is going to mean that people, are doing things that are more targeted, although it's shorter time frames because we all have such short attention spans now. But I think what it's really going to open up for is like a whole world of why classroom training is really important. I think that's actually going to make it more important, because people are going to realize that the AI stuff is great, but you need those conversations, you need those interactions. So I think it's going to make the classroom training maybe less frequent, but more valuable to kind of build on what you've learned. The other thing, which isn't necessarily that new, but I think is going to get bigger and bigger, two things: virtual reality training and gamification. So I've never really used it myself, although I heard a lot about it when I worked in a housing association called Salix Homes. The virtual reality stuff is so epic, right? So imagine that you're a builder and you're learning about health and safety, and you need to learn about something. I can sit you on a computer and do some e-learning on it, or I could give you a virtual reality headset and you walk around your building yard or whatever it's called, sorry construction people, and you pick up a brick and you do whatever, and it gives you options. And I think the AI within that is going to become so clever that basically for a lot of jobs, like even customer service, I reckon you're going to get to the point where, you know, you're going to go through training where you have almost the face-to-face training will be better in that sense from a virtual reality perspective. You could even apply it to leadership training. You know, you can have conversations in a face-to-face session, but this idea of actually live practicing, particularly because people hate role plays, right? Coaching, you know, you might be able to get a virtual coach. I don't necessarily think this is better than the real person, but there's a real opportunity for people to access training that maybe feel uncomfortable, have additional needs or neurodivergencies that make those environments not pleasurable for them, and they find it really, you know, itchy and sticky and not for them. So I think that's going to make it more accessible, but I also think it's going to make people like myself and people that have the skill set to deliver stuff, maybe we're not going to deliver it as much, but it's going to be really important what we do, because that just will not be able to be replicated in the AI sense.
Yeah, and from the AI perspective, yeah, I didn't expect you to say what you said actually, because you know, there's a lot of fear around AI of like it's going to take my job, and really what you just described is enhancing it, and also the value. I think you're just able to sell the value of why you as a human with your experience and your connection could go along the side of AI and make it an enhanced experience, which I think is like the one of the best examples I've heard of how AI isn't going to take my job, it's going to enhance my job,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Well, yeah, because we can still personalize it. So I know a lot of people use AI to write workshops. I honestly think that's ridiculous, because whilst AI can write you a template, it doesn't add the human aspect to it. So AI might make my job easy. It might make me a slide deck, but I'm still going to have to go through that slide deck and make sure it's really relevant. I'm still going to have to bring that alive. I'm going to have to irisify it, for example, when I'm working at Iris. You know, they might be able to write me a great session on emotional intelligence, but I need to make it applicable for those people. I need to bring my real life experience, all the things we've talked about that make the training effective, the authenticity, the vulnerability. You just can't get that from a chatbot. So I think actually it could make my life a lot easier. And there may be some threats in the sense of there will probably be less training I'll need to deliver, because a lot of the knowledge stuff, particularly people that do like systems training, like that may be affected, because, you know, the system can literally tell you what, you know, like almost like a live demo, like what do you click now, what you're going to do next, you know, almost like a storyboard type thing of programmed in. But I actually think that AI should, for most jobs, streamline the admin and the stuff that takes us a long time, and actually give us more energy to focus on the stuff that makes the real impact, which is the face-to-face sessions in our case.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's again, it's a great example. You're able to articulate how it can be used versus uh, you know, some of the things that you described, even with the trainings being made, yeah, you kind of see that in every industry, I think, right now. That's the dangers of AI, obviously, is just trusting it too much, of just throwing out whatever it spits out without looking at it. And that's where somebody who has the knowledge and the training and the history that you're describing that you would have in this
Mm,
regard to spot something and be like, that's not quite accurate or quite
yeah.
right, and we need to change it in this regard.
Yeah, we just have to be careful that we don't become lazy in L&D with AI, because I do see people becoming lazy, you know, like, oh, it'll just make my slide deck for me. And then like it's sloppy, it's obvious, it's
Right.
like lazy work. And often in L&D, you have two options. You can do the easy road or you can do the right road. And the right road is a lot more time consuming. And a lot of people take the easy road because they think, I'll just, quickly just write this thing up and then it'll be all right. And people will think it's all right. People can see through it. Like, most people have been to so many different trainings. They can tell when you really don't know what you're talking about or you haven't spent time preparing. It's really obvious. So I think we have to just be careful that we don't become lazy to it and think, oh, this basically could do my job for me and I'm just getting paid to do my job. No, like, you can use it to its advantage, but you still need to have the human element to it, because if not, I think we just end up doing our whole industry a disservice.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any differently or better. I think you're 100% right. Um, and I've got a couple more questions. I want to branch off from that topic because I think one of them is, what excites you about where the industry is heading? Like, what do you look at? What do you read? What comes your way that goes, oh, I'm so excited to be able to grasp this, learn this, use this, try this, coming forward in the L&D world.
I think the thing that really excites me is, more than ever, I feel like people are realizing that we're essential and that leadership development is also essential. I've not been in my career for donkey's years, but I have been doing it for about 11 years now. And in that time alone, I've seen such a shift in the importance of leadership development. When I first started, it was like, we run leadership programs. That's really nice. Make sure everyone does their e-learning. Now it's like, we must have good leaders. Like, we must have good people, particularly with mental health and stuff being such a big thing, or poor mental health, or mental illness really is how we should refer to it. Seeing as that is much more prevalent, people are talking about all these things, which is brilliant. The landscape has shifted in terms of what people want. And also, I never know whether it's Gen Z, Gen X, whatever generation they are. The young generation that are coming through have different requirements from a workplace and are very demanding in a good way. So we have to keep changing our approach. And when I sometimes have, and I hate generalizing people, but when we think of generations in the workplace, if I have people that are boomers, so those are more towards the end of their career, on a session with somebody that's, sorry, I can't remember because I've been off work for a few months, Gen X, Gen Z, whatever it is that's coming through the workplace that are younger, they have very different, approaches to things. Even myself, I could easily go and get another job tomorrow if I had to. I don't want to. I love what I do and I love working for us. But if I had to, it wouldn't faze me too much. I'd be really upset, but I would be able to do it. My mum did the same job for 35 years. The idea of going to get another job is just totally that makes me feel, not saying you can't do it. She absolutely could do it, but it's uncomfortable. So I think there's so much room for us to constantly get better at what we do. But ultimately, the most exciting thing is how, because of AI as well, developing yourself as a human and your skill set is going to become even more essential. And so therefore, we will become more essential. And I think AI will probably help us be more metric driven as well, which gives us so much scope to we should really be sat on those exec tables going, what are the problems? And we'll find the solution when it comes to people development. We're not there yet, but that's where I think we will hopefully get to. And I think we're closer to that than we've ever been.
I mean, again, a valid argument on getting the data out of it. I mean, you described earlier how hard it was to prove, and now we can connect the dots of how AI can 100% help prove that. I mean, best argument I've heard, honestly. um, so, I mean, with that, what would be the biggest advice that you would give a company or an executive or somebody looking at L&D that either does or doesn't have an L&D program today, or knows that they need to improve or implement? What's the biggest advice that you would give a place of saying, here's why you need L&D, or here's how you could improve?
Okay. So if you want to make loads of money or help people or whatever it is that your company objectives are there for, then you need high performing, consistent people in your organization. And the only way you're going to get high performing, consistent people when you are going to hire people from all different places with all different skill sets and all different strengths and weaknesses is to have a department that pulls all of that together and creates that clear message. That's what our leadership program at Iris does. It says, I know you've done leadership programs before, and that's amazing, but this is how we do leadership at Iris. Now, without that, we've got lots of people doing things in different ways, some better, some worse. It doesn't create that consistency. And ultimately, if you want your car to perform really, really well, it has a regular service. It has things that you invest in it. You make sure that you have your tires changed, whatever it might be. You have your MOT done. I don't know if that's the same in the US, but to make sure it's roadworthy. You know, you do these things every year and you insure it to make sure it's protected. We should be doing that with our employees. If we don't excite them, engage them, they're just going to leave. And if they don't leave, they can become a rotting employee who's just difficult, deflated, and just detracts from things. So really, it's absolutely essential. If you want everyone to be singing from the same hymn book, then you need to have a department that pulls all of that together, sees the problems and finds the solutions and tries to build that up. And you really need somebody or a team of people who really believe that and passionate and are going to lead from the front. You have to do what you say you're going to do. What a hypocrite I would be if I didn't practice what I preach. I've got a team of people. They know what I say. If I go off and say, you've got to be nice to your team and I'm not, then what does that make me? People are going to see through it. So that's probably enough. That's probably the real reasons why I think it's essential. Not that I'm biased or anything.
No, I hope places are listening because it's much more rare to even see an L&D team these days than I mean it just is. Like I am at a place at the moment where there's the training was whatever I've learned myself, I suppose.
Well, that's
And
the
it's
terrifying situation. And then we wonder why people don't perform, right? We wonder why. There's two reasons why people don't perform. You've hired the wrong person in the wrong job. I never think people are useless people. I think they're just hired into the wrong job for their skill set. So there's that, in which case, bad on you for hiring the wrong person. Either you've lied about the job or you've misled them or they've misled you. And the other reason is you haven't equipped them to do the job that they are there to do. You've set them up to fail. So that's on you as well. You can't expect, just because I've been an L&D manager before, if I turn up at your business tomorrow, you can't expect me to hit the ground running from day one without any kind of induction. Obviously, it depends how senior you are, how much you might need. But I'm going to need to know how Iris works or wherever it is I'm working. And if you don't, all that's going to happen is I'm going to take longer to achieve the goals you want me to do. I'm just going to waste more of your money while you're paying me to sit there and look on the intranet page and work it out for myself rather than creating me a program that really makes me hit the ground running. You want me to perform quickly? Then induct me properly. We waste so much money because we just hope that people are good. Just like you've done this before, right? You come in, but it's different everywhere. I'm not saying we have to hold people's hands, but we do need to give some guide rails, right, to make them succeed. And 9 times out of 10, people don't succeed, and it's actually our fault. It's really unfair on people, but it is what it is. Needs improving.
And it's interesting for those that maybe can't correlate the dots. At least for me, an LED team and an IT team are both typically looked at cost sink buckets. They're not looked at value added gains typically, where it's such a wrong perception at the end of the day. Like you put a very good articulated argument together throughout the duration of our conversation here of why L&D can and typically does. It's just how do you present the info in a way that is the hardest, I think, argument to make so far. And it's very similar in the IT space, I think.
Yeah. You going? Is he okay? Sorry, hope you don't mind. We've got a visitor now.
Oh, we're okay. We got a special guest.
Oh, you okay? We're nearly finished.
We're very close, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
No, you're okay. And with that, let's go ahead and move over to some of the fun parts, especially now that we've had our argument about why L&D is so impactful and important. This is going to be interesting. I can guess some of these, but I'm so curious, especially being across the pond from you. The first one is coffee or tea.
Controversial, neither. I don't drink hot drinks.
Neither.
Well, that's not strictly true. I drink hot chocolate. Everyone told me that when I had a baby, I would drink coffee. didn't they? But I just don't like the taste. I can drink tea, so I would say neither. I'm a water and a hot chocolate girl. It's
There we
okay.
go. So books or a podcast?
It depends on how much time I've got and the topic, I think. I'd say podcast on the whole, but pre-baby, I did like to read a book, but that's no time for that now.
Morning bird or night owl? And it's
Again,
probably changed, I'm
yes,
guessing.
it has. So pre this little one, I was definitely a night owl. I would much prefer to be up late doing stuff, but now I'm a morning. I love a morning walk before everyone else is up because he's got me up early. But I love being up early and like feeling like I've got loads done. But I can't get myself out of bed unless I have to. Obviously now I don't have a choice, but now definitely morning.
And
Oh
I'm going to
dear.
skip one because it was classroom training or digital. I think we heavily have covered that.
Yeah, definitely classroom. Although I do think that we've done a good job, haven't we, of making digital training good at Iris. I think it can be done, but not all day. I don't think all day digital training should be allowed. Should it?
Agreed. Coaching or mentoring?
I personally, as an accredited coach, which I didn't mention at the beginning, I personally think mentoring is brilliant, by the way. I'm not slating it at all. But I just personally feel that coaching, you can almost tick both boxes. So you can help someone, mentor somebody because you have the experience sometimes, but also you can coach them to help them discover and come up with their own answers to questions. So I really like, sorry, it's very loud. I think coaching.
Perfect. I mean, it's a great argument. I haven't done a ton of coaching because I'm not accredited. I am not certified. So coming from a mentoring perspective, it's interesting to hear the other side of the fence there. Um, excuse me, metrics or intuition?
Oh, it's really hard. I think that in from a leadership perspective, if I'm thinking about what my team are doing, then I need to start with the metrics. But ultimately, there's never a perfect pathway, right? So I will use a lot of intuition. I'm a very intuitive decision maker, but that won't be purely intuition. It will have been led by metrics, and I also will need to feel confident enough to back it up with some metrics. Otherwise, it wouldn't get through anything. If you know what I mean? The channels of authorization.
Absolutely. And the last question that we'll ask, so that way you can go ahead and,
It's okay.
maybe, take care of the little one, is if workplace learning were a stage performance, what genre would it be?
Oh, it's a really difficult question. It's definitely not a tragedy, that's for sure. Um, um, I do like to think that it would be a comedy, mainly because whilst learning shouldn't be funny, it should be enjoyable, and you should come away feeling like you've got something kind of concrete out of it. And I think when you attend a comedy show, you come away feeling like you've got something, right? You feel better, or you've got a new joke, or you've got something to share with people. And I think that's what learning is about as well. Learning is about having, something to take away and enjoying the process. Whilst I hope that no one finds me that funny in sessions, but that's probably the closest one I could choose.
I was about to end it, but I can't end it now without talking about the acting that I got to see firsthand in February from Natasha and Naomi. So I got to see this live, and there was some comedy. So despite what she just said, but with
It's
that,
fun.
I'm going to go ahead and wrap the meeting up here. I really appreciate the time that you took to speak today, and for all of the individuals that have worked with us and all the new friends. I hope you learned something about L&D today. I love education. I know it's very passionate for you. And at the end of this, I'll go ahead and share Natasha's LinkedIn. And if you want to speak more, you wanna ask advice on how to even get something going at your company. Maybe she'd be willing to lend a couple tips or tricks. But I appreciate it. And with that, meeting over. And if you'd like
Thank
to
you.
like, subscribe, or share, please do so. And I very much appreciate you taking the time. I know the challenges that you have with the little one.
That's okay. That's all right. Thank you very much for having me. It's been lovely to discuss all these things and get my mum brain back in a little bit of gear again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Take care.